So, a new LEGO Batman game was just announced. LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight will release next year and is a love letter to Batman's history throughout movies, TV, and comics. I grew up playing the LEGO games, especially the original LEGO Batman from 2008, and with this new game taking the traditional format and throwing it out the window for a more complex Batman Arkham style of game, it's gotten me thinking, what other DC characters could get their own solo LEGO game in the same vein? Sure, Batman is their most popular character and their golden goose, but the rest of the DC universe is brimming with potential in the video game space. And if they're gonna keep canceling projects left and right, maybe LEGO is the way to let other characters get that time in the spotlight. So these are some DC characters that I want to get a LEGO game. I love LEGO, whether it be the sets or the games or the movies. They were a hugely foundational part of my childhood, which is why I've decided to devote my entire life to LEGO. Everything about me, my entire being, everything that I am, everything that I stand for will be all about... Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I think I went a little too far here. I don't know how to turn back. I'm really worried. I think I need a doctor. But I can't get an appointment in time. Which is why this video is sponsored by ZocDoc. There are many issues with the American healthcare industry, and booking appointments is one of them. Even if you have insurance, it's always a gamble if you're going to end up with a doctor that fits you and has spots available. That's why I'm glad about ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click instantly to book an appointment. From mental health to dentistry, eye care, skincare, and everything in between. ZocDoc makes it easy to book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers. With ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors by insurance, location, and see reviews by verified patients so you can choose the best, most convenient care for you. When you found the doctor you need, you can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time that works for you, and instantly book a visit with just a few clicks. Plus, ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking. And you can even score same-day appointments. No need to call doctor's offices and wait on hold. ZocDoc lets you do everything online so you can quickly make an appointment and get on with your day. Go to ZocDoc.com/Troy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video, and thanks to my patrons and channel members who help make these videos possible for just $1 a month. This new Batman game looks super exciting. Traveler's Tales is taking the lessons they learned from LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, which completely redefined the traditional LEGO formula to be more in-depth and complex, and they're applying the same mentality to The Dark Knight. The game frankly looks like it was ripped right out of the Arkham series, just in LEGO form, with gliding around the open world, combat with a counter system, and even gargoyle-based stealth mechanics. All the Batmobiles are playable, there are costume designs from all throughout Batman's history. It's really looking to be the perfect Batman game, just he doesn't have any thumbs. And that's really exciting. Not only will this scratch the itch of a new Arkham game that I've had for so many years, but it also shows that the future of LEGO games can really be anything you can imagine. I mean, they're all over Fortnite now, of all places. Use creator code TroyAboyo17, please and thank you. Seriously, please? The LEGO surgery was very expensive. For years, LEGO games followed a pretty standard formula. Platforming and puzzle solving with some light combat, a fixed overhead camera, and trademark silly jokes. Just with different little gimmicks and mechanics that set each other apart. And don't get me wrong, it worked. It's why they pumped out like 1 million of them. The level and puzzle design in these games is incredible. They were great couch co-op games with friends or partners, and especially good for younger audiences and those newer to gaming. And over the years, the games grew and developed. The level design got better, they added voice acting, huge open worlds, absurdly massive casts of playable characters, to the point where LEGO DC Supervillains is probably the pinnacle of that style of design, and frankly doesn't get talked about enough if you ask me. I love that game. But I might love it just because it was based on the Rebirth era of DC, and the story was also based on Forever Evil, which I'm sorry, I'm just like a sucker for both of those. And so with the Skywalker Saga, TT Games flipped the entire script on its head. There was still couch co-op, a giant world to explore, fucking way too many playable characters, and their trademark humor, everything that made the LEGO games great. But they also reworked the camera, added melee combos, a cover system for shooting, skill trees, all without losing that signature LEGO style and flavor. So I'd love to see that approach applied to not just Batman, but other characters at DC. A game with the same kind of in-depth mechanics as a big AAA quote-unquote real game, but still keeping what makes LEGO special. The first character I want to get a LEGO game is Wonder Woman. I'm gonna be real, Wonder Woman just needs something. I know that James Gunn is fast-tracking her movie development, which is something that I'm making a video about coming soon, but god, her game getting canceled and laying off the hundreds of people that worked at Monolith was just such a punch in the gut that I don't really know if anything can make up for that. I've been reading a lot of Wonder Woman lately, and it's kind of dawned on me just how little of her world has ever been adapted, especially her post-crisis lore with George Perez's run in the 80s, which completely redefined her character. The Linda Carter show ended before these concepts were introduced, the DCAU barely scratched the surface, and even her solo movies didn't help. The first one, you know, the good one of the two, literally starts by killing off all the gods. That's like half her mythos right there. And don't even get me started on... Hello, no! And so a game, even if it's just in Lego form, could be the avenue to fix that and fix her reputation. This could be the chance to introduce Wonder Woman's supporting cast to a general audience. We could meet her pantheon of gods and the Wonder Girls. I want to see Ferdinand the Chef in Lego form. I don't know, I just think that'd be really funny. And then maybe, oh, just maybe, people could stop saying she doesn't belong in the Mount Rushmore of comic characters. She does, and if you don't think so, you are wrong. The next character I'd love to see get a Lego game is the Flash. The Lego games are no stranger to going fast. Firstly, they've always had a history with racing games, starting with Lego Racers in 1999 and its sequel, and then the spin-off Drome Racers, and more recently, Lego 2K Drive. Not sure what's going on with that title, but all right. And the TT game style of Lego even had racing and speeding through the world as far back as the original Lego Star Wars with the pod racing mission, which was really fucking hard. I hated that. I'm sorry, I hated that mission. And so the Flash feels like the next logical step up from that. Flash has basically been begging for a standalone game for years at this point. We almost got one developed by Bottle Rock Entertainment in 2007, but that was canceled because the publisher, Brash Entertainment, went bankrupt in 2008. And so maybe Lego is the way forward with it. Even just hopping into Lego DC Supervillains as one of the Flashes and running around the city is already like 90% of the way there. Just add more variety to it, some bullet time, more physics and momentum, and bing bang boom, if you got yourself a Flash game. And there's a lot of stuff you could do with the puzzles too. You could have certain types of bricks that Flash could phase through, having to get pieces from one side of the map to the other really quickly. And if you want to go further with it, you could have a lot of fun using Flash's time travel. I made a dedicated video on what I'd want from a Flash game, complete with a Majora's Mask time loop mechanic. But you could also do interesting things with switching back and forth between different time periods, like that one mission in Titanfall 2, which is like the coolest thing that's ever been made. I really love that Supervillains wasn't afraid of putting the other DC villains at the forefront. The game was a love letter to all sides of DC's rogues gallery, including the Flash. And I'd love to see more of the rogues here and their relationship in the classic silly Lego style. The next DC Lego game I want to see is Teen Titans. The Teen Titans are definitely up there in terms of DC's heavy hitters. Like they gotta be top 5 at least, right? You of course have the TV show, which skyrocketed them to popularity. But even during the 80s with Marv Wolfman and George Perez's run, they were some of DC's biggest characters. And yet, aside from tie-ins to the animated shows, they've never gotten the video game treatment. I remember when I was a kid, there was this game on the Cartoon Network website called One-on-One, and it was like 6 games rolled into one where you went against a different Hive member. It was very, very influential for me as a kid. My biggest concern with Legacy of the Dark Knight is the number of playable characters. It's being said that there will only be 7 compared to the dozens, if not hundreds, in other Lego games. Whether that's just for the main story or for the entire game, including open world, we're not sure. But one of the biggest draws of these games is the huge variety of characters, including showcasing the weird and obscure that even hardcore fans have never heard of. The Teen Titans have had a huge cast of characters, from the classic Fab 5 to the new Teen Titans to the mid-2000s and the modern era, and each generation having an array of supporting characters to back them up that aren't as well known and can easily fill a Lego roster. Except I'm not sure how they'd Legofy Deathstroke doing, you know? The next Lego DC game I'd want to see is the Terrifics. The Terrifics were created by Jeff Lemire and Ivan Rice in 2018, and they're basically DC's spin on the Fantastic Four, apart from that one. And that one. And hey, that one came first. The team consists of Mr. Terrific, Plastic Man, Metamorpho, and Phantom Girl. So instead of having a million different characters with the same moveset, you could focus in on just the handful and really lean into the different abilities of each team member, more than you could in previous Lego games and really go in depth, which is probably the reason the new Batman one could be limited to so few. I do think that Lego as an IP is really fascinating, not just because of what Lego represents, but also because of its consistency. Regardless of anything, you could see a Lego game on the shelf and know not only the type of game you're getting into, but also that it's good, silly, accessible fun for everybody. It's kind of like the safest sticker you could imagine. And that means that in terms of the characters it's based on, you can take a few more risks and dig a little deeper without needing to appeal to the widest of demographics possible. Like they made a Lego Hobbit game with only the first 2 movies. That's so specific. The Terrifics are all about the unknown regions of space and exploration. So maybe the levels and missions could be randomly generated like a Lego roguelite, and some characters' abilities make some things easier and some things more difficult. We're seeing Mr. Terrific get a big spotlight lately with the Superman movie, and I love that. Michael Holt has always been one of my favorite DC characters and has always been given the short end of the stick, and I think him graduating from 3rd smartest person in the world to the 1st and becoming like DC's Mr. Fantastic is a great move. Although if we really want to do DC's version of the Fantastic Four, we need a Lego game about Hank Henshaw when he went into space with his wife, brother-in-law, and best friend, and they all died horrible deaths of radiation poisoning. And then he became Cyborg Superman for some reason, I don't know. The next character is Zatanna. Now, one of the games I spent a lot of time with as a kid was Lego Harry Potter. And like a lot of people, I have a very complicated relationship with that franchise, and I don't want to financially support the horrible, horrible monster who created it. But speaking in terms of game design, that original game had a pretty interesting spell system, and it'd be interesting to go even deeper into that, especially with Zatanna and her backwards magic. Magic systems in games are always tricky, trying to quantify these designs into easy to understand mechanics, but I feel like if there's anything that can do it, it's Lego. One of the core fundamental ideas about Lego is the infinite possibilities when building building. And so maybe when you learn different abilities or for puzzles, you have to literally piece together sentences backwards, letter by letter and word by word, like you're actually building the spells brick by brick. It could even open the doors to Dr. Fate making an appearance, or Constantine and the rest of the Justice League Dark. Like the Terrifics, this is one of those characters that realistically wouldn't get a solo game, Lego or otherwise. As much as I love them and Zatanna and the Magic side of DC, they're just not A-listers enough yet to sell a whole game on their own, even in Lego, and they'd more likely be part of a bigger Lego DC game. But still, a guy can hope, okay? Also, it's my video. I can do what I want. None of this is real. I'll pitch a fucking Lego Baby Joey game, all right? You don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm completely unpredictable, which is why the next character I'd love to see is Green Arrow. Ah, fuck. Of course I'm putting them in this video. What did you expect? For real though, Green Arrow and Black Canary would be perfect for Lego. One of the hallmarks of Lego games, and something that I hope never ever goes away, is the ability for couch co-op. Nowadays, multiplayer has mostly been resorted to online only. With some exceptions like Split Fiction and It Takes Two, split screen co-op has kind of died out, but Lego games have always been great with friends. They make it super easy to just jump into a game and try to platform and solve puzzles together. My partner and I have a ton of memories playing the old Lego Star Wars games, and so I'd want to lean into that and make the duo of Green Arrow and Black Canary the main appeal, especially after the Skywalker saga, which added a much more in-depth over-the-shoulder shooting mechanic. They could go even further with that with Green Arrow. Back in the original Lego Batman, you just moved a cursor around a screen to throw your batarangs, but now you can just pull out a Glock. It's revolutionary. In general, a Green Arrow game could be super fun, Lego or otherwise, like a mix between Arkham and the new Tomb Raider games, with different arrow types you can switch between that each have different uses and puzzles. Maybe as tutorials, it flashes back between his time on the island where he learned all these skills. In Black Canary, one of, if not the best fighter in all of the DC universe, depending on who you ask. If you ask me, it's yes. If you ask anybody else, they'll say probably not, but whatever. It could be so much fun as a melee-focused character to balance out Oliver's range. And you have to work together with a second player for combat or to solve puzzles with their canary cry. If there's a Lego Green Arrow, does that mean there's also a Lego Karl Marx? I'm asking the important questions here. There's one character that I feel like absolutely deserves a Lego game, and that's none other than Superman. He was a playable character in the story of Lego Batman 2, but I'd love to see him get the forefront as the main character here.
Bruce, it's been 5 years. You still owe me $16.
I've talked a lot before about how a Superman game could work, but still there's this idea floating around that it's impossible to make a Superman game because he's too powerful. And so Lego could hopefully put some of that to rest. In terms of story, the game could be for Superman what Legacy of the Dark Knight is for Batman, a mishmash love letter to the character's history throughout movies and TV and comics, like the original George Reeves series, Christopher Reeve, Returns, Man of Steel, and now Corn Sweat with the DCU. Hell, give me some missions based on the animated stuff, or Superman and Lois in Lego Smallville. Literally the best part of DC supervillains is flying around the open world, going down this little street, and oh my god. One of the ideas that I always see get thrown around a Superman game is the idea of protecting the city. Instead of giving Superman a life bar, give it to the city of Metropolis instead and make the goal about preventing collateral damage, which is what the Superman Returns tie-in game did. And I think this idea works really well in concept, but in practice it kind of ends up feeling a little micromanagey, except in Lego. While I still wouldn't want the city to be the only health bar, I think Lego could be the best place for that kind of mechanic, purely because of Lego's identity not just with destructibility and making the entire environment destructible, but also with constructibility. Building, I'm talking about building. I thought I was doing something there. Imagine getting thrown through a wall by Doomsday and you have to take fallen bricks and put the building back together again before rushing back to the fight. And maybe you don't have to do that for the Man of Steel section. It's something that I couldn't see happening in a big AAA kind of Superman, but it fits right at home with Lego. Also, while we're talking about Lego Superman, I need to get something off my chest. I really hate when they print Superman's trunks onto his legs like this. You know me, I'm a trunks defender all day, every day. But it just looks weird and it throws off his proportions and it feels like a parody. Like, just make the middle piece red and treat that like the trunks. We don't have to go overboard here. It's what we do for Batman, you know? This is something that I feel very strongly about, if you can't tell. It's very important to me. And the final DC character that deserves a Lego game is Green Lantern. Green Lantern really feels like the perfect match for a Lego game. Firstly, because there's so many different playable characters you could choose from, not only the human lanterns, but also the different aliens and other lantern cores from throughout the emotional spectrum. Lego Batman 3 might as well have been a Green Lantern game in terms of the story because there's so much potential there. One of the biggest hurdles with a Green Lantern game, Lego or not, is how to best adapt their powers. The Green Lantern power ring is the most powerful weapon in the DC universe, with the limitations only being the wielder's willpower and imagination. So trying to develop a game around that infinite potential is basically impossible. The only thing close would be something like Scribblenauts. Oh wait, but I'm picturing it working kind of like Tears of the Kingdom. One of the hallmarks of that game was the Ultra Hand ability, where you could take different objects, move them around the world, and literally glue them together. At first it seems like just basic stuff until holy shit, that's a Gundam. It's to the point where you can basically just skip entire dungeons and mechanics just because you built something to get around it, which sounds like it might be boring and cheating, but if you ask me, it addresses one of my biggest issues with puzzles in gaming. A lot of puzzles in video games, Zelda included, only have one strict answer. And if you don't know the answer, if you don't know the right button to push or the right thing to hit, you have to either bang your head against the wall for 30 minutes to figure it out or look it up and feel ashamed. But Tears of the Kingdom turns that one answer mentality into the more you understand these mechanics, you can figure out different solutions logically, even if they weren't necessarily the intention, which to me is true player freedom and creativity. Perfect for Green Lantern. What if you could glue different bricks together, limited only by your imagination and maybe a willpower meter that could grow over time? And you can bring those creations out at any time for puzzles or for combat. Now, back in the 2010s, there were, and I believe I'm using the scientific term here, a fuckload of Lego games. I don't know what was in the water over at TT Games, but they were pumping out these bad boys every other week, all with more or less the same style of game. And I'm not saying we should make a return to that, of course not. But I do think that in the current landscape of AAA gaming, where everything has to be these huge, massive blockbusters that cost $300 million and need to sell 1 billion units, it would be kind of refreshing to see games for non-A-list characters that can still potentially have interesting gameplay mechanics surrounding them, without the risk of being the biggest flop in the world because it used a less popular IP. And more so, I think Lego games represent something bigger. For a lot of people, a Lego game is their first game. They're so accessible, so easy to pick up and play for anybody of all ages, with so much variety and charm to them that you can play them for hours and hours and really sink your teeth into them. That original Lego Batman video game was formative in my relationship with these characters. Sure, I liked Batman as a kid with the movies and the TV shows, but it was that game that really kicked it into high gear. It showcased lesser known villains. It put Robin at the front and center without being embarrassed. You could unlock Nightwing. As a 9-year-old, I didn't even know who the fuck that was, and now he's one of my favorite characters of all time. And I hope that one day the same thing could happen to some 9-year-old out there for any of these amazing characters and make them fall in love with this world. I think it's safe to say that Lego games as a whole and what they represent set me down the path to the person that I am today. In more ways than one. I think I'm stuck like this. I'm really scared. But what are some Lego DC games you want to see? What do you think about the new Lego Batman game coming up? If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Special thanks to Pasta Sauce 71, Trans Girl Named Zelda, DeGunner, Metal Sentry, and Sam Milner for joining us spectacular fanboys on my Patreon and channel members. Huge shout out to Chars in the Discord for helping making this Lego version of myself possible. This was really fun. For those wondering, it was done with a mix of Blender and Adobe Character Animator. This has been TroyBoy17 coming at you live. Be responsible, and I'll see you around.